You're listening to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman on the Land of Israel Network.
Hello and welcome to Inside Israel Today here on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com. The last couple of weeks we've had very interesting shows where we broadcast my interview with Naftali Bennett last week, the week before with Michael Medved, the conservative talk show host in the United States. And here on Inside Israel Today, I think we make a pretty good effort to present all sides of politics that are inside Israel today. We've had on our show before left-wing members of Knesset. I believe Nachman Shai has been on this show before. When we were on the other network back then, we had people from across the political map. And after having Naftali Bennett and Michael Medved so clearly on the right, I wanted to swing that pendulum back today. And so we have on our show Merav Michaeli, who's one of the brightest and most impressive spokespeople for the left, a member of Knesset from the Zionist Union until recently, the head of the faction fighting its parliamentary battles in the Knesset. Merav, thank you for coming here on Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network.
Thank you for having me, Gil, and thank you for the compliments. You know, this is one of the introductions after which you're not sure that it can get any better. But I want to say that I was listening to your introduction and thinking to myself that, it's become in Israel a thing that you have to kind of apologize that you are a leftist or that you bring on board someone who's leftist. It's like, since leftist has become the worst curse, and I'm not saying this as an analogy or anything, it is in schools actually worse than, other things that used to be considered
curse words in the schools, sure.
Yeah. Then, it's, and I was listening to your introduction thinking how, widespread it is, how widely spread this phenomenon is, and how problematic and dangerous it is.
Why?
There's an ongoing process of delegitimization. You say it for me, please.
Delegitimization, yes.
Something's wrong with my tongue. Okay.
That's okay.
Of the left that's been going on for a long, long time by, unfortunately, a lot of politicians on the right and a lot of right-wing organizations, or should I say extreme right-wing organizations, who actually portray every center-left opinion or activity as not only non-legit, but treasonous. Mm-hmm. And people who, like the majority, who don't, they're not extremely well informed, they sort of see they see what's loudest. Mm-hmm. And I think they can, buy this propaganda and think that really those people are not for our good.
So explain me, are you a Zionist?
Oh,
I'm sorry I have to ask that question.
Yes, but this is exactly what I mean. This is definitely, Zionism is definitely one of my primary identities, and yet I have to, justify it, sort of prove that I am and the moment you are accused or actually suspected of not being a Zionist, then how can you possibly prove that you are? It's like it's a lost game already.
So what does it mean to be a left-wing?
It's weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird to me, when I come and I speak with people, I say to them, I was like, both of my families in my case, on both sides, my grandfather was assassinated for being such a convicted Zionist that even when it was so clear that his life was in danger, he did not agree to leave the country. And he was assassinated here by Jews, unfortunately.
You're referring to Mr. Kastner.
I am referring to Dr. Kastner. And on the other side, the Michaeli family side of me is also like, socialists who built the country with their bare hands, literally. And I say to people, I live here. This is my country. This is my language. My family's here. My friends are here. How can I possibly not be in favor of this place? I don't have any other place. It's like this song, it's a very well-known Hebrew song. I do not have another place. I don't want another place. And yet I have to, being a leftist in Israel today means that you constantly have to prove that you don't want another place, that you want the best possible thing for this country.
Wasn't the renaming of the Labor Party or joining together with Tzipi Livni's party and calling it the Zionist Union part of that effort to reclaim Zionism for the Israeli left?
Definitely it was, and it definitely is. I mean, we had to find a name for this joint movement of labor and the movement, of course. It couldn't be like Tzipi Livni did not become part of labor. So, but yes, certainly calling it the Zionist is definitely what you're describing, trying to say definitely yes, of course, first and foremost Zionists. But I'm just, it's important for me to point out that the mere fact that we even have to fight for it goes to show how bad the incitement is and has gone like so long and so deep so far, unfortunately.
I mean, the numbers can't be argued with, though. The numbers show that a very small percentage of Israelis today define themselves as solidly left-wing. That they, in the polls of the Israel Democracy Institute, which are called the Peace Index, a very left-wing name for a poll, they use the people define themselves as centrist when they're really left-wing, as center-left. When they're asked left, you get less than 10%.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I said, it's something that's been going on over 20 years now. So yes, for sure. People will say to me, so many people will say to me, I believe everything that you believe, but I'm not a leftist. I'm not a leftist. Mm-hmm. So it's not about what your views are, what your convictions are, what you want for the state of Israel. People will say to me, for sure, we are for a political agreement and for a settlement, but we're not leftist. We're not leftist. So it's the naming. It has nothing to do with the content. It's about power. It's become a mean for part of politics to stay in power.
So how do you fix that? What can be done with the leadership of the Zionist Union and the leadership of the left to try to reclaim that pride? You did get a new leader who wasn't always someone who defined himself as left-wing and kind of has run away from that term. I don't know if he's the one who can fix that, but can it be fixed?
First of all, I am an optimist. I believe optimism is a political choice. And certainly, I think as an Israeli, there's no other way but being optimist because, as we said, we already agreed that there is no other place for us. And I strongly believe that the pendulum always comes back. And we just have to, and that is very, very difficult when you're not in power for so long and you are under such heavy attack for so long. But what we need to really focus on is not lose our faith and our convictions and stay true to what we believe in. And what we believe in are three major, like
yes. What does the left believe in today?
The three arenas of the life of the state of Israel are the security political one, in which we believe strongly, and as a member of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee for already over 5 years now, I can tell you with even more authority now how possible it is, even more than ever, to reach a political agreement with the Palestinians, a regional, something that we believe in even before I came onto politics.
A regional solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. On that,
not only to them,
On that, you can
not
agree
only to them.
with Donald Trump and Netanyahu and Yair Lapid. You can find a pretty wide consensus on that.
Yes, only difference is that I don't know about Donald Trump. I know about Netanyahu, that he's been in power for 10 years, and the fact is that he hasn't done enough to reach such an agreement. I mean, he can about it. By the way, one needs to say that when Netanyahu does speak in two languages, in English he still does say two states. In Hebrew, it's been a long time now that he says something else already. So it's just a mental note. So it's not about agreeing about it. It's about working towards it because it's achievable. I know that it is achievable, and I strongly believe that this is the number one Israeli interest. So this is on this arena. And because this is real security. There is no security that can last forever without some sort of peace.
And you say there's two more issues beyond peace that the left promotes.
So this is one, and the other two is, of course, the social economy issue, because the gaps in Israel being
which
as
you
high
can
as they are.
cooperate on the right with members of Knesset on the right.
Once again, no, we can cooperate, and we are cooperating often, but on little things. The big policy, unfortunately, which comes from Netanyahu and always has, unfortunately, I say this really with regret, but during his time, the gaps in Israel have widened dramatically. Poverty has deepened dramatically, and we believe this should be altered altogether, and we should strive for equality, social economic equality, and social services should be much more accessible for everyone, especially for those who can't afford them. Otherwise, this is a very, very basic thing that we believe in.
But at
and
the
the
same
third
time,
thing is, of course,
just to point out, though, at the same time, economic growth is at a high and unemployment is at a record low.
That is true, but more and more people are working, but more and more working people are poor. So what's the point of having a job if it can't get you a living?
That makes sense. Too many people are being left behind.
So this is something that we really are extremely invested in. And the third thing, of course, is democracy. Democracy, rule of law, and a secular state. Now, this is the homeland of the Jewish people. And the tragedy of Israel today is that it is not the homeland of all of the Jewish people. The fact that this the only country in the world that does not recognize all Jews equally is the homeland of the Jewish people. How crazy is that? It's just inconceivable. This is strategically extremely dangerous for Israel. If it does not realize that the only way it can be, what it should be, really the nation state of the Jewish people, is being a secular state that accepts all the Jews and allows everyone to be Jewish the way she wants to be Jewish, really it cannot work. And this is something that we need to realize sooner than later.
It's interesting that both times that you've said the word settler, you've said it in a positive way. Perhaps besides trying to reclaim Zionism for the Israeli left, you can also reclaim settlement as a positive word.
In Hebrew, it's two different words, Heskem and Hitnachluyot.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't have the same double meaning. The word settlement in Hebrew does not have the same double meaning it does in English.
It's true. It's just interesting.
So, yes.
I do want to focus on that.
Let's make it clear that I'm talking about an agreement.
Exactly. But in terms of reaching that agreement, it's definitely become harder to do that, and the feeling is that perhaps people on the left have blamed our own side too much for not achieving that agreement. When you hear a speech like Abbas made last week, that speech was so anti-Semitic that it got condemned by Peace Now, the New Israel Fund,
and by myself.
By yourself, by Meretz further to the left of you, by the New York Times.
Wall to wall, like they say. Everyone can enjoy agreeing on condemning Abbas. Okay, now what?
That's my question to you. Now what? After a speech like that, how can you still have hope?
No. Listen, I don't know that, first of all, this is part of the dynamic that the right wing has taken constantly. And that is, it's as if now it's just started now. So you say, oh, well, look at Abbas. Look at what he says. How can you work with someone like that? This is the end of Abbas. Abbas has proved himself so many times to be a real partner in maintaining, working with Israel on security and stopping the violence. And you cannot take this away from him. But the thing is that once and again, I find myself in this position where I have to defend Abbas or the Palestinians in general. I don't want to do that. For me, it's not about the Palestinians. It's about Israel. And Israel, for its sake, needs to end this conflict, to have a border, to go on with its life without this burden on its back. This is my interest. It's not about the Palestinians. I'm not grading Abbas or anyone else. I understand that this is the most profound Israeli interest to achieve some kind of agreement which will allow us to free ourselves to go on and do things that we are not able to do now because we are paying too much for this conflict. The cost is amazing, not only financially, economically, socially, etc., but in terms of our attention. All of the country is invested in this ongoing conflict. It has an amazing psychological effect, which is not good. There is a toll here. We have to go on. We have to have a border which we will protect. If anyone tries to dig a tunnel or to throw whatever missiles or whatever, as we are dealing with it in any other border. And in the past, let's remember, we had threats much bigger, much more dangerous on our borders, and we could deal with them. And Tzahal today, the IDF today, is stronger than it ever was. Thankfully, I'm knocking on wood here, yes? And Israel is an empire, and if it cannot use this power position in order to get the best deal that it needs, then what's all this power for?
Merav, one thing that our listeners just don't understand is, why does Israel need to relinquish anything when it's doing so well? They warned us for 20 years that Israel would be boycotted and shunned if there wasn't a peace process. Netanyahu can rightly say he's been in 6 continents in the last 2 years. He got treated like a god in India. He became the first Israeli leader to visit Latin America and Australia, Muslim countries, Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. So what do you need a peace process for anymore if we're doing so well?
You don't need a peace process. I don't think you need a peace process. I think you need an agreement. That's a totally different thing. As I said, first and foremost, I'm afraid that your listeners may suffer from something that Israeli public suffer, and that is the complete absence of Palestinians from their view. Like the normal Israeli does not see Palestinians at all. They don't go to the West Bank, not to settlements and not to any other part of the West Bank. They do not see them on television, on news, unless bombing something or stabbing, God forbid, someone. And so they live under this false notion that there are territories, empty territories, that we just need to give someone for no reason. But that is not the reality. The reality is that there are 3 million people. Maybe they are Palestinians. They're not the Zionists. But we are controlling them. We invest a lot of money and a lot of national attention in this control. It costs us. And we do not have a border. And it's an ongoing question of whether we will be condemned for it, whether people, or that is, leaders and countries, will remain in contact with us. Will the BDS succeed? Will it not? this is what defines us today. Israel should not be about that. It should be about what it can be as the nation state of the Jewish people. First and foremost, a safer place. It can be safer with an agreement. It is now. And it can flourish more, which it needs to do. That's why we should do it.
How much hope do you have in Donald Trump to be the one who can solve this conflict? You know, I know that you're a feminist, and Donald Trump isn't exactly liked by feminists in America, in Israel, or anywhere else. Are you able to look past that, see the success that he had in Korea, and have hope that perhaps with a different approach to a peace process that hasn't been tried yet, perhaps being more willing to think outside the box than his predecessors, he could succeed more in achieving the goals that are so important to you personally?
As you stated rightfully, I am a feminist, and yes, Donald Trump is not my role model. Not, by the way, not, but never mind. But for sure, ever since he campaigned, and during his campaign, he kept saying, "I'm bring the ultimate deal." And I kept saying, by all means, do bring on the ultimate deal. I will be thrilled. I am really, there's nothing that I want more than for Donald Trump, for whatever reason, to be able to bring the ultimate deal and to succeed where everyone else has failed.
That's beautiful. We have an endorsement of Donald Trump from Merav Michaeli.
No, we have an endorsement of giving him every benefit of every doubt in bringing the ultimate deal. And if he does, then for sure, an endorsement for the deal.
And you're happy about the embassy being moved. Peace Now started a campaign today against the embassy moving to Jerusalem, and they say they're going to be protesting at the ceremony. You identify with a lot of the ideals of Peace Now. Do you feel comfortable with them protesting what was until now a very consensus move in Israel?
I did not hear about that yet. Listen, Peace Now are not the issue. Of course, I don't know many people on our side who are not happy that there is more recognition in Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. But the truth of the matter is, you know, for me, Jerusalem is my capital, has always been. And it's nice that, you know, other people say, oh, yeah, well, let's move our embassy there. But I have to tell you that for me, if Donald Trump really achieves some kind of agreement for Israel, it's much more meaningful for me. Even though I'm very happy with the embassy, and for sure it's a celebration.
And it's a celebration for the Israeli left as well.
As well.
Is there any other last message you want to send out to Jewish and Christian listeners around the world here on the Land of Israel Network? Anything else that's important for them to learn or to hear before we end our show today?
Wow.
I don't think you get thrown that many softballs, Merav, in your interviews. So.
I just want to say that, you know, we really appreciate very, very much, and we cherish the support that we as Israel and Israelis get from our friends in America. That is America as America. That is specific friends and movements. And it's really one of our biggest assets. And it's, I think, as I said before, also as individuals, it's as if you have a back. You know, you have a back. But I think, you know, it's in America, it's like supporting Israel means that you support its government, whatever it does. It doesn't matter if you agree or you do disagree. And I want to paint that the other way around and say supporting Israel can and should, I think, support Israel, realizing that it has many voices in it. All of them belong to Israel. All of them want Israel's best. And don't fall into the trap of pushing those voices, those other voices who are not the government's voices, away just because the government doesn't like them.
Merav, I want to thank you for coming on our show here. I want to tell you that I appreciate you being a token leftist. I'm sorry if we've treated you like a zoo animal or like a pterodactyl or something.
No, it's my pleasure and honor.
Okay. Have a wonderful day.
I'm doing my best to be a good token leftist.
Thank you for being that token leftist, and thank you, listeners, for listening to that token leftist point of view here. And there'll be more left and right here on Inside Israel Today in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you for being with us from here in Jerusalem. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gil.